Before we start our animation journey, I would like to introduce a CSS animation course, CSS and GSAP animation. This is the most complete and updated tutorial about CSS animation. From this tutorial, you can learn CSS filters, transition, 2D transformation, 3D transformation, perspective, transform, animation. Also, you can learn GSAP animation. Not only that, also cover multiple animation exercises. And this GSAP animation is part of my CSS animation course. So, if you are interested to learn complete CSS animation, enroll this course now. I will provide the link at the description. You can check out for once. Hello guys, good to see you back. Once again, I'm back with a new tutorial related animation. And from this tutorial, we are going to start GreenSock animation. Now, let's try to understand what is GSock animation. This is the official website of GreenSock Animation. GSAP is an industry standard JavaScript animation library from GreenSock that lets you craft high-performance animation that work in every major browser. So in one word, GSock is a JavaScript animation library. It is very much helpful in web development. Now, let's open the homepage. So this is the homepage of GSAP animation. We used to use CSS for animation, but now we can create animation using JavaScript libraries. And now animation become very easy because we don't need to use huge amount of CSS property in our project. Not only animation, using GSAP, we can create a website also. Let me show you the demonstration. So these are the example of website that we can create using GSock animation. All the website you can see in this section create with GSock animation. If I scroll down a little bit, here you can see the website made with GSAP animations. Suppose I'm going to open this website, this portfolio website. Let's see how it's look. Here you can see the animation and the transitions in this website. GSAP animation provide you the hybrid look to your website. Let me show you other examples. There are many websites made with GSock animation. Suppose if I open this one, here you can see the result. When I scroll down my page, it's look like that. So there are a lot of examples made with GSAP animations. You can check out all the examples one by one. And you can learn GSAP if you have the basic knowledge of JavaScript, HTML and CSS. You don't need any advanced level of coding to learn GSAP. Now let's see how we can install GSock animation. For that, we need to jump into the docs section, documentation. And I already opened my Visual Studio Code editor and my browser using Live Server extension. So as you can see in my current working directory, we have only index.html file. Now I'm going to create a JavaScript file. So I'm going to type app.js and I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to link this JavaScript file in my HTML document. So here I'm going to use script tag. Script source equal to app.js. And I'm going to set this file. And you can take any name for your JavaScript file. It's not mandatory to use app.js. You can use script.js, him.js, heart.js. It's all about you. Now let's back to the document page. After open the documentation section, you need to click on install drop-down option. Otherwise, you can search for install. So I'm going to click on this section install. And here it provide all type of installation method using npm, node package manager. Also you can use CDN, content delivery network. Also it provide ARM. The best and easiest way to use this animation is CDN. And this is your CDN link provided by GSAP. So I'm going to copy this link and back to my Visual Studio Code editor. And I'm going to paste it before the app.js script tag. And I'm going to save this file. Always use your custom JS file below the source file. Because first your browser should have knowledge about GSAP. Then it can easily call the functions in your custom JS file. And now we are going to experimenting with little animation. Also, we can create this animation using CSS, but we are not going to use CSS here. So let's implement the GSAP animation. So in our body tag, first I'm going to create a div tag, div.box. Here I create a div tag with class name box. And then I'm going to style this box a little bit. Let me show you. So I'm going to use style tag. Style, and inside the style tag, I'm going to select the box, dot, box. Then inside the curly braces, first property I'm going to use width. And here I'm going to set width 200 pixel. Also, I'm going to set height. Height 200 pixel. Basically, I'm going to create a square box. And then I'm going to set background. Background, and it could be any color. For now, I'm going to use red color because red color is much more visible. And I'm going to save this file. After save this file, here you can see the result. So we done our HTML and CSS part. Let's jump into the app.js file, GreenSock Animation. Did you remember in our previous tutorials we learned about to and from? Suppose I want to move this box at x-axis direction. I want to move it 100 pixel at x-axis direction. For now, this box x-axis position is 0 and I want to move it 100 pixel. If you want to move 0 to 100, then you need to use to. And if you want to move 100 to 0 again, then you need to use from. Just you need to remember the basic concept about it. We already learned about it in our animation section, so I'm not going to explain it in depth. Let's start the code to clear the concept. So here I'm going to type GSAP. GSAP dot, we are going to use to function, to. Then inside the round braces, you need to mention this selector, which element you want to select. I'm going to select this box using its class name. So inside the double quotes, I'm going to type dot box, then comma. Next line, I'm going to use curly braces. And here we need to mention what we want to do with this box. I want to move this box at x-axis direction. So I'm going to pass x colon and I'm going to move it up to 300 pixel. And before I save this file, if I show you my index.html file and if I show you my style section, and as you can see in my style section, we do not use any animation. After save this file, as you can see, it's not working because my auto suggestion replaced this keyword with this one. So again, we need to replace it with GSAP. Yes, and I'm going to save this file. After save this file, as you can see, it's moved the element from this position to this position at x-axis direction. Now, let me explain you what is going on behind the scene. So let's inspect this section, and first I'm going to untick this option, and then I'm going to select this element, and here I'm going to open my style section. As you can see in this style section, here it use transform property. Transform, translate 300 pixel. So behind the scene, GSAP use this CSS property to move this element. Let me clear the concept. So I'm going to extend the value. I'm going to make it 500. This time I'm going to move it 500 pixel. If I save this file, here you can see now transform translate value is x-axis position 500 pixel and y-axis position still 0 because we do not move this element at y-axis direction. That's why it's written 0. So the code structure made with CSS. For this tutorial, I think live server is not mandatory, so I'm going to turn off the live server. And for now, I'm going to open index.html file from our directory. So as you can see, this time I open this file from my directory. I'm not going to use any live server. So if I reload this browser, you can see the animation. You can experience this animation. If I use the live server, then it's not working so well. So for now, if I reload this browser, as you can see, it's moving so fast. So I'm going to set some duration. So here, I'm going to use comma, then I'm going to use property called duration. Duration colon. For now, I'm going to set 5 seconds. And I'm going to save this file. After save this file, if I reload this browser, now you can see our animation take 5 seconds to complete it. If I reload it again, here you can notice time to time it increase our x-axis value. Basically, it changed the CSS property according to duration. And if you want to run this animation after 2 seconds, yes, you can use delay. Just here you need to use comma, then you need to type delay. Delay, colon, and I want 2 second delay. If I save this file and reload my browser, as you can see after 2 seconds, it start our animation. So to make this animation happen, we don't need to type huge amount of CSS code in our CSS section. Just we need to use this amount of code if we use GSAP library. Next, I'm going to move this box at y-axis direction. So here, I'm going to type y, colon, and from y-axis direction, I want to move it 300 pixel. If I save this file and reload my browser, as you can see after waiting 2 seconds, it moved x-axis, also it moved y-axis direction. At the same time, if you want to change the background color, you can use this property. Suppose I want to change the background, so I'm going to type background property. Background color, colon, and I want to set green color. Background color, green. And then I'm going to save this file. After save this file, I'm going to reload the browser. After save this file, as you can see, it's not working because I think I did some mistake. Yes, we need to provide this value. It's a string value, so we need to provide this value inside the quotation. So I'm going to use single quotes. So again, I'm going to save this file and reload my browser. After reload my browser, after waiting for 2 seconds, as you can see, it start the animation and also it changed the background color of this div element. For now, I'm going to reduce the duration. I'm going to make it 2 seconds. Also, I'm going to remove delay and save this file again. As you can see, now it turned red to green. And remember, in CSS, we use background property like this. Background hyphen color. But in JavaScript, we do not use background properties like this. Here we use camel case order. As you can see, our C characters start with camel case. So we use camel case in JavaScript. Here you can use width and height property, also scale property. Suppose I want to scale this element. So here I will type scale, and I want to scale it up to 2 times, then comma. Now if I run this animation, it's going to extend this element 2 times. Let me show you. So after run this animation, as you can see, it extends the size of this box. Now it's become 400 pixel at x-axis and 400 pixel at y-axis. Not only that, you can set width and height. Let me show you. So then again, I'm going to save this file and reload my browser. And this time, I'm going to set width. And here I'm going to set width 100 pixel. Basically, if I save this file and run this animation, it's going to reduce the element width, because by default our element width is 200 pixel. So if I reload this animation, as you can see, it reduces the width of this. For now, I hope this concept is clear for you, how we can use it. In this example, to run this animation, we need to reload this browser. But in future, to run this animation, we are going to use scroll trigger. So whenever I scroll the browser, it's going to run the animation. As I told you, to understand GSAP animation, you should have basic knowledge about CSS and HTML. So this is it for this tutorial. This is the little introduction and demonstration about GSAP animation. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next tutorial. Before I start the next tutorial, as I told you, this course is part of my CSS animation course. If you are interested to learn complete CSS animation, you can enroll this course now. So let's back to the topic. Hey guys, good to see you back. This is another tutorial related GreenSock animation. In our previous tutorial, we create this basic animation using GSAP. If I reload this page, as you can see, this is our animation. It took 2 seconds to complete the animation. Also, it reduced the width of this element. With that, also change the background color of this element, red to green. And now, I'm going to show you how you can rotate this element. So for now, I'm going to comment out this line with, then I'm going to use another property called rotate. Rotate, and I want to rotate it 360 degree, comma. If I save this file and reload my browser, you can see the result. Basically, we can do all this stuff using our animation properties in CSS. In future, we are going to apply this animation with events. That's why JavaScript is important. And now, we are jumping to the from function. Now, I'm going to comment out all the lines. Then, I'm going to call from function. So, again I'm going to type GSAP dot, again my auto-suggest replace my keyword. So, I'm going to type GSAP manually. GSAP dot from, then inside the round braces, at first I'm going to select the box element, dot box, comma, in the next line I'm going to use curly braces. Inside the curly braces, we need to define our properties and values, and I'm going to apply exact same properties. So here I'm going to type x value is 500, comma, y value is 300, comma, next I'm going to pass rotate value. Rotate value, I'm going to apply 360 degree, comma, next value I'm going to set duration. Duration, and I'm going to run 2 seconds. Next I'm going to apply background color. Background color, I'm going to apply inside the single quotes green, and I'm going to save this file. So basically I apply the same properties which I apply in my to function. If I reload my browser, now you can understand what is the difference between to and from function. When I use to function, it moves the element from the origin. But when we apply from function, then it's back to its origin place. So if I reload my browser, as you can see, it returned to the origin place. If I reload my browser again, as you can see, it's back to the origin position. So that's the basic difference between to and from function. If you notice, you can see it turned into green to red color. Also, it rotated in opposite direction. Now let's talk about repeat property. If you want to repeat this animation multiple times, then you need to use this property. So here I will type repeat. Repeat, and I'm going to set repeat 3 times. If I reload my browser, it's going to repeat this animation total 4 times. Because by default, it's going to run our animation 1 time, then it's going to repeat the animation 3 times. Let me show you. So I'm going to reload my browser. After reload my browser, as you can see, it's going to repeat this animation total 4 times. And now, if you want to repeat it infinite time, for that, you can use -1 value. If I save this file and reload my browser, as you can see, it's going to run our animation infinite time. It's not going to stop until I change the value. So for now, I'm going to change the value, repeat 0, and I'm going to save this file. After save this file, I'm going to reload my browser. So as you can see, this time it's going to stop our animation repeat. And now I'm going to apply yo-yo effect. Now I want to run my animation up and down. For that, here I'm going to pass a property yo-yo, y-o, and here I'm going to pass true value, true. Then I'm going to repeat this animation fourth time. And I want to save this file. If I reload the browser, you can see the yo-yo effect. Now it's work like yo-yo. If I make this value true, then it move forward and backward. It will go once and come back. And if I pass repeat value infinite, then infinite time it's going to do the same thing. Not only that, also you can apply the same property in this to function. Then it's going to provide you the same effect, but the difference is if we use to function, then this element not going back to the origin position. It stop in the destination position at that place. Now let's back to the index.html page. As you can see, now we have only one div element, but I'm going to duplicate this line total 3 times. Now we have total 4 div element. Also, I'm going to comment out some properties in my app.js function. First, I'm going to remove rotate function. Then, I want to move it only x-axis direction. Next, I'm going to remove the repeat value. Also, I'm going to uncomment yo-yo. Then I want to save this file. Then back to the HTML page and reduce the size of this box. This time I'm going to make it 100 pixel width by 100 pixel. If I save this file and reload my browser, it's going to apply all the animation all the div element because their class is same. Let's provide little margin between them. Margin 5 pixel. And I want to save this file. After save this file, if I reload my browser, now you can see the gap between them. And now I'm going to change the class name all of these elements. This is box 1, this is box number 2, this is box number 3, and this is box number 4. And I want to save this file. Now let's back to the app.js file. So this is box number 1. First, I'm going to change the animation style. I'm going to use to function. GSAP 2. Then I'm going to duplicate this section multiple times. Basically, I'm going to remove all of these commented lines. I don't need it. Then I'm going to duplicate this section total 3 times. This is box number 2. This is box number 3. Sorry, this one is box number 2. This one is box number 3 and last one is box number 4. If I save this file and reload my browser, it's going to return the same result. Oops, we need to make changes in our index.html file style section. Here I'm going to target all the div element at once because from here I change the class name. So I'm going to pass the element name, tag name div, and save this file. If I reload my browser, you can see the result. Now all the elements complete the animation at same time. But now I want to run second number after the first number. I want to say after run the first element animation, I want some little delay for the second element. For that, here I'm going to use another property called delay. So in our box 2, I'm going to use delay property. Delay, and I want to delay it up to 2 seconds. Oops, delay spelling is wrong. D-E-L-A-Y. So I want to save this file again and reload my browser. After I reload my browser, as you can see, after 2 second delay, it run our animation. So one by one, you can delay the animation. Suppose for third element, I'm going to delay it up to 4 seconds. Then for the fourth element, I want to delay it up to 6 seconds. So again, I'm going to save this file and reload my browser. After reload my browser, after complete it waiting for 2 seconds, then it's going to run one by one. Now the problem is, you need to select all the box one by one. Also, you need to apply delay multiple times. But GreenSock have this solution for this. So I'm going to comment out all the line except the first one. Then I duplicate the first one and comment out this duplicate one. And this time I'm going to select all the boxes at once. So I'm going to remove box 1. Also, we need to make changes in our HTML file. Now again, I'm going to change all the class name. Otherwise, also we can add another class named box. So here I'm going to add box. And I'm going to save this file. Basically, here we use multiple class at the same element. Now let's back to the app.js file. Now I'm going to apply the same delay in my animation. For that, we need to use a property called stagger. Stagger. Stagger, and I'm going to set 6, comma. Then I'm going to save this file. After save this file, I'm going to reload my browser. As you can see, after complete the first one, then it run the second one. Then, after complete the second one, then it's going to run the third one. At the same way, after complete the third one, then it's going to run the fourth one. If I reduce the value, stagger value, if I make it 4 and then save this file, now it's going to do the same thing little faster. So after complete the first one, it's going to run the second one. Then it's going to run the third one. At last, it's going to run the fourth one. And if I reduce the stagger value more, if I make it 1 second, 1, and then save this file and reload my browser, now you can see after 1 second, it's going to run all the animation one by one. Now, we don't need to type this amount of code to get the result. Just one property and value do the same thing. We don't need to create individual animation for that. The help of stagger value, you can define the delay time between the animations. Stagger value going to manage your individual delays. If you open the documentation of this GSAP animation and search for GSAP function, and if you open this section, here you can see the usage of the special properties. You can see data, delay, duration is, ID, lazy. There are a lot of properties related to function, and you can use all of it. After scroll down this page little bit, here you can see the stagger property. And from this section, you can read the documentation about stagger property. Official documentation is the best way to learn something. It's always give you the right and up-to-date answer. You can read about yo-yo property, yo-yo is, keyframes, etc. In our first tutorial and the second tutorial, I just try to introduce how we can use GSAP animation and what are the properties. We just learn about the working process of GSAP animation. From the next tutorial, we are going to learn about timelines. We are going to learn about scroll dealer, locomotive, etc. So this is it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next tutorial. Before I start the next tutorial, as I told you, this course is part of my CSS animation course. If you are interested to learn complete CSS animation, you can enroll this course now. So let's back to the topic. Hello guys, good to see you back. Once again, I'm back with a new tutorial related GSAP animation. And in this tutorial, we are going to learn GSAP timeline. The GSAP timeline is a sequencing tool that allows users to control and manage the timing of animation. Basically, it is a container for twins and other timelines. And it is used to build complex sequence. With timelines, animations are displayed in the order they are listed in the code. So, new animations can be added without manually calculating delays. Timelines also make it possible to create easily adjustable and resilient animation sequence. Here are some things you can do with GSAP timelines. Positioning animation in time, repeat animations, include delays before repetition, and chain animation. In a simple word, timeline is anything getting set in a time frame. Suppose this is our 5-second timeline. But here we can specify different tasks at different time seconds. We can perform different tasks at different time frame. Basically, using timeline, we can specify what we are going to execute step by step. In our previous tutorial, we learned about how we can run GSAP animation. And if you want to run animations one after another, then we need to provide delay each of the animation. And to resolve the delay problem, GSAP introduced timeline. So we are going to discuss the timeline. And remember, our timeline is connected with each other and it runs step by step. So finally, we are in documentation page of GSAP animation. And in our previous tutorials, we already learned how we can install GSAP animation. Now, let's back to the Visual Studio Code. So as you can see, side by side, I open my Visual Studio Code editor and my browser. And as you can see in my current working directory, we have total 3 files: index.html, main.css file, and app.js file. And in our index.html file, I already linked GSAP animation in this script tag. And I already use CDN link of GSAP animation using script tag. Now, inside the body tag, I am going to create total 3 box. So here I'm going to type div hashtag box. This is box number 1. Then I duplicate this section. This is box number 2. Again, I'm going to duplicate this section and this is box number 3. Also, I'm going to assign a class. I'm going to assign the same class that we can target all the boxes at once. So I'm going to type class, this is just box. Then I copy this section and paste it in our box 2 and box 3. And again, I'm going to save this file. And then I'm going to jump into the main.css file. First, I'm going to use universal selector. Star, inside the curly braces, I'm going to set margin 0. Our next property I'm going to use padding 0. And our third property is box sizing. Box sizing border box. And then I'm going to style the box element. So I'm going to use its class name dot box. Inside the curly braces, first property I'm going to use width. Width 100 pixel. Height 100 pixel. Then I'm going to use background property. Background, and I'm going to use gold color. Also, I'm going to add margin. Margin, and I'm going to add 5 pixel margin. And I'm going to save this file. If I save this file and reload my browser, here you can see the result. And now I want to assign different animation to these items, but one after another. And to assign the animation, we are going to use GSAP. So let's jump into the app.js file. So first I'm going to type GSAP SAP dot. Again, our auto suggestion replace the keyword. So I'm back to the position GSAP dot, and I'm going to use from function. From. Then inside the round braces, inside the double quotes, at first I'm going to select the first element, box 1. So I'm going to select this element using its ID name, hashtag box 1. Then, comma, inside the curly braces, first property I'm going to use opacity. Opacity, first I'm going to make the opacity 0, and next I'm going to use duration, animation duration time. Duration, and I want to set duration total 5 seconds. If I save this file and reload my browser, within 5 seconds, this element becomes 0 to 1. I want to say this element opacity becomes 0 to 1. Let me show you. If I reload my browser, as you can see, within 5 seconds, it becomes 0 to 1. Also, I'm going to set x-axis value 300. From x-axis direction, it comes from 300 pixel. So again, I'm going to save this file and reload my browser. You can see the result. I think 5 seconds is too long for this animation, so I'm going to make it 2 seconds. Then I'm going to duplicate this section. This time I'm going to select the box number 2. So I'm going to change the ID name, box number 2. If I save this file and reload my browser, then both the animation going to work together. Let me show you. You can see the result. Now we have one solution. We can use delay property. Delay, and I want to add 2-second delay. So if I save this file and reload my browser, so as you can see, we need to use comma between these two values. Then again I'm going to save this file and reload my browser. Here you can see after complete the first animation and 2-second delay, it complete the second animation. If I did this same thing multiple times, then it's become huge code. Suppose we create a website and where we are going to learn multiple effects. And I want to run this multiple effect one after another. And if we follow this method, then it's become horrible. We are going to use timeline for that. So I'm going to comment out all the codes. Then I back to the documentation section. Then you can search for timeline in this filter sidebar. Also you can click this option, timeline. Here I just try to show you from where you can get the timeline documentation. Then just back to the JS file. First I'm going to declare a variable. So here I'm going to type const, and my variable name is TL. TL stands for timeline, equal to GSAP dot timeline. GSAP dot timeline function. So here we create the timeline, and now I'm going to use this same code. So I'm going to copy this code and I'm going to run it using GSAP. Let me show you. So here I'm going to paste the code and I'm going to uncomment this code. Now we don't need this delay property. So I'm going to remove this property. And here I'm going to replace GSAP with TL. And I'm going to save this file. Now here we create a timeline. If I reload my browser, as you can see after complete the first one, it starts the second one. But you can notice here we do not use any delay. If I do the same thing for the third one, so I'm going to duplicate this line and change the ID name, box number 3, and then save this file. And reload my browser. Now you can see after complete the first one, it's going to start the second one. Then it's going to start the third one. Basically, timeline replaces the delay property. Obviously, you can use delay if you work with little amount of animation. If your animation is big, otherwise, if you use multiple animation, then always go with timeline. It is very helpful when we create series of effects. Now, let's back to the documentation. If you want to repeat your timeline, you can use this object. Let me show you. So I'm going to copy this object value and property. Then back to the Visual Studio Code. Then inside this timeline function, I'm going to use curly braces. Then I'm going to paste the repeat value. I want to repeat this animation total 2 times. So if I save this file and reload my browser, as you can see, first it complete the first one, then second one, then third one. And now it's going to repeat the timeline. So this is how repeat works. And if you want to delay between these timelines, yes, you can. Just you need to use this property, repeat delay. So I'm going to copy this property and value, then back to the Visual Studio Code. And after comma, I'm going to paste it here. So it's going to repeat this animation total 2 times. Also, it's going to add little delay of 1 second between these timeline. So if I save this file and reload my browser, after complete the timeline, you can see it's going to wait for 1 second. Then after 1 second, it's going to run the timeline once again. You can see the result. And if I increase the value, then it's going to wait for long time. Also, it provides some other functions like pause, resume, seek, and reverse. Suppose if you want to reverse the timeline, if you click on any button, then it's going to reverse the timeline. It provides all the different options how you can use it. You can read the documentation for the more knowledge about it. From here, you can learn all the options. Now let's talk about absolute time. It measured from the start of the timeline. Let me show you the example. Now let's back to the Visual Studio Code and let's back to the index.html file. So here I'm going to use heading tag h2 and also I'm going to assign an ID equal to demo, and here I'm going to type a text hello world, and I'm going to save this file and reload my browser. Then let's back to the app.js file. Here I'm going to animate this heading tag, but at first I'm going to reduce the repeat value. I want to repeat it just for one time. Then I'm going to select this heading tag using timeline tl dot, and I'm going to use from method. Then inside the round braces, first I'm going to target the heading tag using the ID name hashtag demo, comma, inside the curly braces, here I'm going to use property called opacity, and I'm going to set opacity 0. And then I'm going to use the absolute time exactly like that. So here I'm going to use the absolute time, comma, and I want to set it for 3 seconds. If I save this file and reload my browser, as you can see, after 3 seconds, it's going to start the animation. First, it's going to show the hello world, then it's going to start this animation one by one. Basically, it adds little delay to this animation. Basically, it's going to show this element after 3 seconds. But if I move this one, if I move this below the box 2, so I'm going to cut this portion and paste it below the box 2 section. If I save this file and reload my browser, then after 3 seconds, it's going to show this text. But it already started this timeline. Let me show you. So if I reload my browser, as you can see, it started my animation. Then after 3 seconds, it shows the text. That's how it works if I change the order of it. There are a lot of things like this in GSAP timeline. Level, start, end, and we are going to learn about it all time to time in our upcoming tutorial. Next, we are going to create an website. In our first tutorial, we learn how we can use GSAP, and in our second tutorial, we learn about timeline. So in the next tutorial, I'm going to try to create an interesting landing page using these timeline methods. And also I'm going to try to implement all the things which I learned in our previous tutorials. So this is it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next tutorial. Before I start the next tutorial, as I told you, this course is part of my CSS animation course. If you are interested to learn complete CSS animation, you can enroll this course now. So let's back to the topic. Hey guys, good to see you back. Once again, I'm back with a new tutorial related GSAP animation. Today in this tutorial, we are going to create a beautiful project. We are going to create a horizontal animation timeline project. As you can see in my browser, we have a horizontal line. And here you can see we create a timeline using these boxes. Now, I want to animate this box when I reload my browser. So you can notice when I reload my browser, first you can see it moved the horizontal line, then one by one, it's going to animate our boxes. Boxes with bouncy effect, rotation effect, scale effect, ease effect, and at last we move this box from the opposite direction. So how we can create this animation effect? As you know, to create this animation effect, we are going to use GSAP timeline. Also, we are going to use GSAP easing properties. So without wasting your time, let's start the practical and see how we can create this beautiful animation. So as you can see, we are in my Visual Studio Code editor. And if you notice, you can see in our body tag, we have a main div tag. And inside this main div tag, here we create multiple boxes. Here we create total 6 boxes. And every box comes with different ID. With that, here we assign a class named box to every div element. And to define the position of the box, also we assign to other classes. Box top for top position and for box bottom for bottom position. We use this class to position our element above the horizontal line. Also we have another class named box bottom, and this class is used to place boxes below the horizontal line. Now let's jump into the CSS file. If I show you the CSS file, at first we assign fixed width and height to our main div tag, and also we set a background color. Then here we create a horizontal line using pseudo selector after pseudo. First we create a blank content, then we position it absolute, because in our main element here we use position relative. That's why here we use absolute position. Then I use fixed height and width. Height 6 pixel and width 1920 pixel. Then after create the horizontal line, here I create the boxes, these boxes. And next I create the circles. Here I create two different circles for box top classes and box bottom classes. To create the circles, also we use after pseudo selector. As you can see, this circle and the arrow sign made with pseudo class selectors. At last, one by one, I position this box according to horizontal line. In this tutorial, I am not going to explain you how I can create this HTML structure. Don't worry, I will provide the source code of this structure. Now, let's jump into the JS file, app.js file. But before, if I show you my index.html file, here you can see I already link with GSAP library using CDN. Also we attach app.js file with this document. So let's back to the app.js file. So at first I'm going to integrate timeline. So I'm going to create a variable const, and our variable name is TL. TL stands for timeline, equal to GSAP. GSAP dot timeline function. Then semicolon to end this line. After create the timeline, one by one I want to implement all the element. At first I want to implement the main element. So I am going to select the class name and then back to the app.js file. So at first I am going to use from function. TL.from. Then inside the round braces, at first I am going to select the main element using its class name dot main, and I want to move this element at x-axis direction. So inside the curly braces, here to type x colon inside the double quotes minus 100. If I save this file and back to my browser and reload my browser, you can see the result. As you can see, we moved this main element from the left to right side. I think this animation is too quick. Let's use some duration. So here, I am going to use duration property. Duration, and here I am going to use total 4-second duration. I think this is enough. If I save this file and back to my browser and reload my browser, you can see the effect. As you can see, whole section moved right side within 4 seconds. But if I reload this browser again, as you can see, the background color of body is still white. Now we need to match the background color of this body with this color. For that, I am going to jump into the style.css file, and here I am going to use the same background color in my body tag. So at first I am going to select the body tag. Body, inside the curly braces, I am going to use this background property, and I am going to save this file. Now if I back to my browser and reload it, now our body background color and main element background color is similar. And to make this animation more attractive, let's make it 100%. Minus 100%, not pixel. If I save this file and back to my browser and reload my browser, you can see the animation, how it's looked. This is just animation of the main section. But as I told you in our earlier tutorials, using live server is the not best option for CSS animation because every time I save my file, it reloads the browser. So I'm going to pause this recording for 2 seconds. And this time I open this document from my directory, not from the live server. So at first in our timeline, we move this main element from the minus 100% x-axis direction. Here we use timeline because one by one I want to perform my animation. Next, I'm going to select our box 1 element, this one. So I copy the ID name and back to the app.js file. And here I'm going to type, basically I'm going to duplicate this section and replace .main with our first box using its ID name, hashtag box1. Also, I want to move this element from x-axis direction, and here I want to set duration just 1 second. And I'm going to set this file. Now, let's back to the browser. If I reload this browser, at first it's going to perform the main animation, then it's going to perform the second animation. But the problem is, after run the animation for the first element, this circle is go behind to the horizontal line. So, to resolve the problem, let's back to the style.css file. So this is our style.css file. This is the horizontal line. So at first, in our horizontal line, I'm going to set z index, and I'm going to set z index 1. Then I'm going to set z index in our box. So I'm going to type z index, and here I'm going to pass 999. And I'm going to save this file. Here I use big value because every time I need my boxes above the horizontal line. That's why here I set horizontal line z index 1 and box z index 999. If I save this file and back to my browser and reload this browser, this time you can see after run the main animation, it moved the box. And as you notice, this time our circle is above the horizontal line. With that, I want to make this box animation more attractive. So here I'm going to set opacity. So let's back to the app.js file, and this time I'm going to use another property called opacity. O-P-A-C-I-T-Y, opacity 0. So when the box start moving from the x-axis direction, then we set the opacity 0. If I back to the browser and reload my browser, now you can see after run the main animation, if you notice carefully, it's worked properly. But if I increase the duration, if I make it 3 seconds for the box animation and then again back to the browser and reload the browser, first it run the main animation, now you can notice the opacity. Here you can notice the opacity of this element, how it's changed. And now I want to take this animation to the next level. For that, we need to use some easing effect. So let's jump into the documentation of this website and search for easing, E-A-S-I-N-G. You can search it in this filter sidebar section. GSAP provide multiple easing animation examples such as power 1, power 2, power 3, power 4, back, bounce, elastic, etc. Every option is different from each other. Suppose if I select power 2, this is how our animation going to run. If I use back, this is how our animation going to perform. This is the graph of this animation. At the same way, if you want to use elastic effect, this is how elastic effect work. Suppose I want to use this effect, elastic. So I want to copy this property and value and then back to the Visual Studio Code. And here, after set the duration 2.5 seconds, then I'm going to use comma. Next, I'm going to use this property and value, elastic. And I'm going to save this file. After save this file, if I back to my browser and reload this browser, after perform the main animation, you can see the elastic effect for the first element. For now, I would like to stop the main div animation because every time it's going to run the animation and it take more time. So First, I'm going to comment out this section. Don't worry, I will uncomment this section later. Then, I'm going to save this file and reload my browser. Now you can notice only this animation. And if you want to change the effect, suppose you want to use back. In that case, just here you need to type is back. After save this file, if I reload my browser, you can see the back effect. Now, at the same way, I want to bring this element from the opposite direction. I want to bring this element from the right side. This time, I want to bring our last element from the right side. So I'm going to duplicate this section, and this time I'm going to select box number 6 because this is the last box. We select this box using its ID name, and then I'm going to change the x-axis position 100% from the x-axis. If I save this file and back to my browser and reload my browser, as you notice, first box comes from this place and second box comes from this direction. Both the animation doing same thing, but just we change the direction. Next, I'm going to use bounce effect for this element, 2012. If I select this option, as you can see how this animation works. So, let's back to the Visual Studio Code. Between box 1 and box 6, I want to place box 2 animation. I want to make it serially. So, I duplicate this section and select box 2. And I'm going to change the is value back to bounce. And also, we need to change the position, x-axis to y-axis, minus y-axis position. And I'm going to save this file. After save this file, let's reload the browser. After reload the browser, after run the first box animation, it's going to run the second box animation. Oops, I think I did some mistake. Because we need to bring this box from the bottom, not from the upside. So let's back to the Visual Studio Code and remove the minus 100% and save this file. After save this file, again I'm going to reload my browser. After run the first animation, you can notice the second animation, how it's work, and it provides bounce effect. Then it run the third animation. Then I'm going to animate the third box. So let's back to the Visual Studio Code and I'm going to duplicate this section. And this time I'm going to select box number 3 and I'm going to change the direction minus 100%. With that, now with bounce, I want some rotating effect. So I'm going to use a property called rotate. Rotate colon, and I want to rotate it 360 degree, a complete circle. And I'm going to save this file. After save this file, if I back to my browser and reload my browser, first it run our first element, then it's going to run the second element. And if you notice, as you can see, it bounced the element, also it rotated the element. Next, I'm going to target the fourth box. So again, I'm back to the Visual Studio Code and duplicate number 3. First, I'm going to change the direction 100% because I want to move it from the bottom. Then, I'm going to use the same bounce effect. But this time, I'm not going to use rotate effect. This time, I'm going to use scale value. Scale colon, and I want to make scale from 0 to 1. So here I pass 0. But before I set this file, we need to change the ID, box number 4. And I'm going to set this file. Now, let's reload the browser. After reload the browser, if you notice the fourth box, you can understand the animation. With bounce effect, it scales the element. And now, I want to animate the fifth element. For that, this time I'm going to use another effect. This time I'm going to use slow effect. So let's back to the Visual Studio Code. And first I'm going to duplicate this section. Then I'm going to change the ID, box 4 to 5. And change bounce to slow. At first, I'm going to change the direction, minus 100%, and I'm going to remove the scale one. This time I'm not going to apply scale effect. And I'm going to save this file. After save this file, let's back to the browser and reload the browser. After reload the browser, as you can see, one by one, it's going to perform all the animations. Bouncy animation, rotating animation, scale animation, slow effect animation, and back animation from the opposite direction. And now I'm going to activate my main div animation. So let's back to the Visual Studio Code and uncomment this section and save this file again. Now let's back to the browser and reload my browser. Now you can see, first you can see a horizontal line come from this direction, then one by one it perform all the animation. So finally we create this timeline effect animation using GSAP. So this is it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next tutorial.